St. Paul's Ask an Expert series is a free educational program featuring knowledgeable presenters from our community discussing meaningful topics of interest for older adults and their families.
Hello, I'm Dawn Hartman, the Director of Strategic Giving for St. Paul's Senior Living Community in Greenville, PA. And thank you for joining us today for our Ask an Expert program. Today, our featured community expert joining us is Amy Atkinson. Amy is the Director of Planned Giving for the Community Foundation of Western PA and Eastern Ohio. And we're going to be talking today about charitable giving and the Community Foundation. If you are a giving person and you'd like to make a difference in the community you live in or you grew up in, raised your family in, you need to know about the Community Foundation and what they do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome, Amy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. A little cold, but...
Yeah, we're waiting for spring. So let's talk about the Community Foundation. First, where are you located?
Our offices are in downtown Sharon. We're on the top floor of the FNB building, right across from the Winter, if you're familiar with downtown Sharon. And we serve 3 counties. We serve Mercer County, Lawrence County, and then Trumbull County over in Ohio. But our main office is in Sharon.
All right. Then let's talk a little bit about your history. How did the Community Foundation get started?
The Community Foundation started in 1981. The O'Brien family had a tragedy. Paul and Tina, the parents, went away on a vacation, a weekend vacation, and her mother had come, Tina's mom had come to watch her grandkids, their 3 children, and there was a carbon monoxide leak in the house. And her mother, Tina's mother, and Paul and Tina's 3 children were killed as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning. So at that time, the community came together and wanted to do something. So they had the first O'Brien Children's Memorial Clam Bake. We raised a little bit over $50,000, and they started the O'Brien Children's Memorial Fund in 1981. Since then, we went from one fund, a little over $50,000. We are now at over 750 funds. We have over $160 million endowed assets, and we've given over $100 million back to the community. So giving $100 million back over the last 40 years on top of having $160 million endowed to give back into future years. Yeah, it is amazing. Last year we granted about $10.6 million back into our community. So it's a big impact, big difference.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about what the Community Foundation does today. What is your role there?
So I'm the Director of Planned Giving. I help people figure out what their passion is, what they would like their legacy to be in their community. A lot of people love their church, and I say, you give to your church every month, and you can do something where you would never die in your church. You could set up an endowment, and for the rest of eternity, we could be sending that same amount to your church every month. So in essence, you never stop living.
Right.
So I kind of do that. So I find different ways. So it depends on what people want to do. Are they just looking for a charitable deduction, or are they looking for income, or are they looking just to make an impact in their community? So, I kind of just get to know the donors and try to help them achieve their goals.
Can you talk a little bit about the different types of charitable funds that a donor could set up at the Community Foundation?
Sure. So we have a lot of donor-advised funds. Donor-advised funds, the donors are still living, or the donor's heirs if the donors so choose. And we have a spending policy set at the foundation every year depending on the markets. And so let's just say you had a $100,000 donor-advised fund. You're allowed to give 5% away a year because that's how we keep it endowed and growing, so it never goes away.
Right.
And so the donors will call us at different times during the year and say, hey, I want to give $1,000 to the library, or I want to give $1,000 to the Humane Society, different things like that, and we process those grants for the donor. Other times, like I'll know a certain donor loves animals, and I know they're doing a capital campaign in that town for animals. I would contact the donor and say, hey, I just wanted to give you this information. I don't know if you're aware. So we kind of work both ways with the donors in donor advised funds. Then there's donor designated funds, which a lot of people set up where they name specific charities or a charity. So if people love their church, the library, St. Paul Homes, and the theater, they every year forever, we cut a check to those 4 places and send a check out in the name of the donor. So that's donor designated fund. And charities really like that because they kind of count on that for their income every year. You know, they always get a check from Mrs. Smith,
Right.
you know, for around $5,000, and it usually grows over time because everything's invested. So that's a donor designated fund. We also have scholarship funds. We give over $1 million in scholarships away every year to the area's students. And we also have agency endowment funds where nonprofits will set up their endowment underneath us, and we manage the endowments for the nonprofit.
So if a donor is listening, and how would they go about setting up a fund if they were interested in doing that? What's kind of the process?
Sure. You just call the foundation. You can talk to myself or to actually anybody there. We'll point you in the right direction. But really, it's just a conversation. A lot of times people want us to talk to their attorneys or talk to their financial advisors, which we're happy to do. But it's as easy as us figuring out what you want your purpose of your fund to be. And if you're doing a scholarship, what the criteria of the scholarship would be. If you're doing a donor designated fund, what designated charities do you want to give to? And then we just sign an agreement between us, the community foundation, and the donor, and then it's funded and it's set up, and we would provide statements. And you're always able to get in online and look at your fund. So it's pretty easy and pretty user friendly.
And is there any kind of minimum requirement to start a fund?
There's not a minimum requirement. We have a 1% administrative fee at the community foundation. So 1% of the market value goes back to help with the administration of the charitable funds. There is a $250 annual minimum. So I always, if that $250 annual minimum is going to affect someone's goals, charitable goals, it's probably not the right fit.
Right. So they can keep adding
yeah.
money to their fund.
Yep.
For
Forever.
as long
Yeah.
as it's
So a lot of people like to set it up while they're living, and they kind of do a donor advised fund. And then in their wills, they'll put something like, upon my death, please, a certain amount or the rest, residue, and remainder of my estate would go into this charitable fund that already exists. Or people will put little, like if someone passes away and they'll say, please, give gifts to, and they name their fund. So, and then once the people pass away, there's a couple of different ways it can go. They can say, when I pass away, I'm going to let my fund become unrestricted in the sense that the board of the community foundation, the people that live in the community, are able to give a certain percentage away forever to the needs of the community.
Right.
Because the needs of the community can change. So that's one way. Or they can say, my church, St. Paul's, and the library. And then it becomes a donor designated fund where we would send checks out in the donor's memory forever. So
that's how they can leave a legacy.
yes.
Include it within their will. Can you talk a little bit about charitable remainder trusts?
Charitable remainder trusts are a great tool where, and this also we usually are talking with someone's attorney and or financial advisor when we do this. It's when someone has, they need income or they want income, but they know they have a charitable intent. So we would set up a charitable remainder trust, and people either take highly appreciated assets and fund the trust, or cash, whatever they want to do to fund it. We have a program at the community foundation that you look at the age of the donor, the amount of the asset, and whether it's a unit trust or an annuity trust, which I'll go into in a second. But basically, we will pay a percentage. So we'll say $100,000 charitable remainder annuity trust, and we pay you 5%, so $5,000 a year for the rest of your life. And at the end of your life, whatever's left in that charitable remainder trust goes into the charitable fund in your name, where you designated what charity you want to help or charities, or it goes directly out to the charity. So we administer a lot of those. We've had a lot of very significant gifts at the end of people's lives, and that continue to help the community, 20, 25, 30 years later. So,
yeah. Who might be, if someone's listening today, who might be interested in setting up a charitable remainder trust? Might be valuable to that person, some characteristics?
I would say someone that knows that they want to give something back when they pass away, and as well as someone that doesn't want to give up the income. So I had a donor who, at the time, the interest rates were really low at the bank, and she lived off the interest of her assets. She was in her 90s. We were able to give her 10% income off of her assets, where at the bank she was getting like 0.5%.
Yeah.
So she thought this was the greatest thing to going, and it was for her. She increased her income, and we were able to pay her the 10% of her gift every year. And at the end, she's since passed away, and she has a scholarship fund. She gives out 2 scholarships to Mercer County students every year in her name. So
That's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned there are two types of charitable remainder trusts.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between those?
There's an annuity trust, and the annuity trust is you put in $100,000, we will pay you $5,000 every year for the rest of your life, unless the funds run out in the trust. But typically, the software we use takes in up to all these, the age, the rate of return, et cetera, the payout, and it has to pass a charitable test. So at least 10% the test has to show that at least 10% goes to charity at the end of the expected life. Sometimes I had one donor live to be 103, and that was the only time that one trust ran out. He went way past his life expectancy.
Right.
But that annuity trust means you get the same payout off of your initial gift every year.
Okay.
Then there's the unit trust, where the unit trust is your payouts based on the market value. So if you put $100,000 in, the first year you would get the $5,000. Then next year it doubles; it goes to $200,000, just because the market had that kind of return.
Right. It's a really good year.
Really good year, yeah. Well, we're still going to pay you the 5%, but of the market value. So the market value is $200,000. So that year you get $10,000. Then the market falls down to $150,000.
Right.
And
So it can go either way.
Yep.
Your payment could go up. Your payment could go down.
Yep. So the unit trust is usually the younger donors that want their life expectancy is a lot longer. That's a way to ensure that it's never going to run out.
It doesn't run out.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So if someone is interested in learning more about the Community Foundation or any of these different charitable funds, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, you could always get on our website. It kind of gives you, it goes through everything I just talked about, really, the different types of funds. We have programs that we do that help local people that have cancer, pay for their gas and stuff like that, or people go back to college and they have a shortfall. So there's programs that we do within the Community Foundation. So you could check that out. It's www.comm-foundation.org, or you can call our office at 724-981-5882 and just ask for me, or any of our team members can help. So yeah, we'll point you in the right direction.
All right.
Yeah, we'd be happy to come talk to you and sometime, explore. It's neat to see people's creativity when it comes to what they want to accomplish for their legacy in their communities. So it's a great job.
Wonderful. And of course, St. Paul's works closely with the Community Foundation. So if you are a St. Paul's donor or a resident and you'd like more information, you can also stop and see me in the Kuiper building, and I will reach out to Amy. We can all get together and talk about what might be the best option for you. So thank you very much for joining us today, Amy. And thank you for tuning in. You can catch all of our past episodes of Ask an Expert on our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us.